Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Emily Springer. I'm an academic trainer in the Center for Teaching and Learning. We are joined by one of our very own faculty members, Dr. Linda Collins, today for today's webinar, tips and tricks using Microsoft Word. So just a couple of housekeeping items. Dr. Collins has mentioned that she would be happy if you have conversation in the chat. So feel free to use the chat throughout the presentation. Just remember that if you want everybody to see your comments, that you need to select the drop down for everyone in there. Otherwise, it just goes straight to Dr. Collins and I. If you have questions, please pose those in the Q&A function of your Zoom. And then just a friendly reminder that there is a live transcript. Should you want to see that scrolling on the bottom of your screen, you can hit live transcript at the bottom of your Zoom and hit show subtitle if you would like that option. As always, our webinars are being recorded and we will place them in the Center for Teaching and Learning LibGuide area for future reference. And I think without further ado, that covers it. I am going to pass it over to Dr. Collins.
Thank you so much, Emily, and welcome everybody. And I can say probably good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're located at. My name is Linda Collins, and I have been a faculty member in the School of Education here at North Central University for 15 years. Thoroughly enjoy it. I'm a dissertation chair and also an instructor. But one of the things that I see a lot with my students are concerns and questions about things in Microsoft Word. And I wanted to do this today so that you could get a little bit of information about this, and then everything else can maybe be a little more transparent for you when you're writing your wonderful dissertation or the activities or assignments that you have. So we're starting with tips and tricks using Microsoft Word. And I want to point out here that this is actually using word art. I usually use PowerPoint for presentations, but because we're using Word, I'm just going to show you some of the things that we can use in here. So we're just going to go down now, and we're going to take a look at kind of our agenda for today. And you've seen a little bit of this if you signed up for the webinar, because that should have been in there. So we're going to look at showing format and paragraph marks. And we're going to use those a lot today because I get students all the time saying, but I have extra spaces. I don't know how to get rid of them. It doesn't make sense, or I'm trying to use hanging indentation. It looks good, but then I add a word and then it gets all crazy. So we're going to learn how to use those paragraph marks so that you can go in and take a look and double check what you have and maybe make some adjustments to it. So we're going to show those format marks. We're going to take a look at formatting reference citations using hanging indentation. I get more questions about that than anything. I also have a video on that I can share if you'd like to see that, but you're going to have this session you'll be able to refer to. The next is use the indent tab key instead of spacing. And we'll go through that and why there's a big difference, and it's important to use your indent or tab key. Insert hard page breaks. Removing extra white space between paragraphs and lines. How many times have you done this and you're like, but wait, I have the same return as I do in the other paragraph, but now I've got more white space. So we'll look at that. Saving a Word document as a PDF file. We're going to look at setting up grammar checking that goes along with your spell check, which is really important to do. And I think it's really helpful. And also we can get reading statistics out of that as well. And that's really important when you're putting together your IRB information, because they'll say must be under grade 10 or, and so forth. So we'll do that. We're going to look briefly at setting tabs, including decimal tabs. And these become very problematic when you're doing tables. Sometimes we'll try to use either a right tab or a left tab, but using decimal tabs will then set them up right there where the decimal point is. And we're going to talk a little bit about section breaks and how those work and why those are really important in the templates that we're using, and maybe some more stuff. To let you know, I have set this up using both Word 365, which is the online app that updates all the time. And I've also used Word 2013 to provide these examples. Essentially on the screens, they look much the same. Some of the ribbons may be a little bit different, but the terminology pretty much stays the same. So we're going to, one more thing too, the control key on the PC is what you have as the equivalent for the command key on the Mac. And I am using a PC right now, but a lot of these are interchangeable. And again, using the command key is usually equal to using the control key, excuse me, on the PC. So before we do our very first one, we're going to have our first polling question. So get ready to answer.
All right. Would you like me to launch that? Okay.
Yes, please. Let's go ahead and launch that polling question.
All right, great. So we have a couple of polls that we are going to launch for you today. And here is our first one. Please feel free to participate and answer this.
Yes, how many versions of Microsoft Word have been produced?
That's great participation. So I'm going to hit end poll so you can see the result. Okay.
All right. Who feels lucky?
Share results. Are you able to see the result?
Wow. Okay. We have a lot of people who have said 10. We have 26% that said 14, 25, 12, and then we have 24% who says, who knows? I love these answers. Let me tell you, Microsoft says 14, but that's only because it says version 14, because they've had a version 1, 1.0, they've had updates, they had DOS, they had Unix, they had Linux. So 14 is what Microsoft is saying, but then they give you a codicil by saying, well, you know what? We've done all these other things. So they could both be the answer, 14 and who knows, because we'd have to go back and click and check it all out on the Microsoft site. Well, thank you for participating in that. Now we're going to start this out with talking about paragraph marks and codes. When we're talking about codes here, it's not exactly like codes if you're, coding and doing programming and things such as that, but they are background codes in Microsoft Word that can show you sometimes what's wrong or what you need to do. So if you're following along and you have Word open, then you can go up here to the Home tab, and with whatever you have open, so maybe you have two windows going on, you can click on this and then it's going to go ahead and show us the tabs. And now it's like, wow, there's all kinds of stuff there. There's paragraph codes, there should be some tabbing codes, there's all kinds of stuff here. And I use these all the time to see what's going on. So just to introduce you to this, whenever you see this backward spacing P here, that means that's where a return is or an enter. And that's when it's going to put that space in for you, right? So then you can know what's going on there. And we're going to do more of this later. This is how we're going to figure out why we have too much white space and stuff too. So this next one is sometimes a question, because students will say, I really only wanted to have 5 spaces and I want it to be tabbed, but what they're using here is these are actually spaces. So these are spaces here and not a tab. If you highlight that and press the tab key, then it's going to put that tab in for us. And here's some different things that happen. If you use the space bar instead of a tab key, and then you start adding additional information, it just doesn't seem to align right. And it's always best to use these paragraph marks, because then you know the system has been programmed for that. It'll always stay that way. If you adjust your font size, if you put in additional information, it will remain the same. So anyway, that's what you do. This one here was created using a space bar. And again, we want to always use the actual tab key, and the tab keys on the left-hand side of your keyboard is sometimes called tab, sometimes called indent, and we'll look more about that later. So there's that tab. But then we're going to walk over here and go, well, there's a lot of white space. Well, if I don't have my paragraph marker on, it's like, well, I don't know what to do with this. You put your paragraph marker on and you can backspace and get rid of those extra spaces, same as here. So that's just a kind of introduction into looking at the paragraph mark. So I'm going to turn that off and we're going to go to our next example. Again, as Emily has stated earlier, if you have questions about any of this, please put that in the comments area for Q&A, and we will go back on these later on. I also have some quick guides at the end of this too that will show you some depictions graphically on how to do these. So off we go. Next one that we're going to do is hanging indentation. And I'm sure if I could hear everybody, they'd be going, oh yeah, that hanging indentation, whatever. So there are several ways that you can set up hanging indentation. One, and the easiest way to do it, is to set this feature up before you start to type your hanging indentation in. And if you do it, it's going to automatically word wrap. It's going to do great stuff. However, a lot of times we already have the references created, but they're not created for hanging indentation. So I'm going to show you how to fix a section as well. So first, I'm going to show you how to format and set the format up for hanging indentations. And then I will type an indentation, excuse me, I'll type one of the resources in here, and I'll apologize if I have any typing errors, I'll backspace, but then you'll be able to see this. So we will go up to the Home tab on the ribbon. And the next thing that we're going to do is come over here to where it says paragraph, and then go over here to the bottom right corner, and it says paragraph settings. And you will click on that. And you will see general, indentation, spacing, and then a little preview here. What we're going to do is go to indentation and then over to special. And then ta-da, there's hanging indentation. So we're going to, and it's also saying that it's going to do the indentation by 0.5. So we'll go ahead and click on OK. And then we'll just type something in here. And you can watch as I'm going along, and this will be an example of hanging indentations. By doing this, it will word wrap. See how it does that? Hey, it's really cool. It does that. And then you don't have to go back and manipulate anything. And then to go back to the next line, you just hit the enter key, and then you can start to type the next one, and it's going to keep at hanging indentation as long as you keep it coded for that. So let's go ahead and look again at home paragraph, and then look, it still says hanging indentation. So that's going to happen when you get finished with all this and you want to go back to regular typing. You can click on hanging and go none, and then you can type and it won't set up the hanging indentation any longer.
Dr. Collins, would it
Yes.
be okay if we can expand or zoom in just a tiny bit more?
Let's do it. Can everybody see that better now?
Is that a little bit better? Feel free to pop in the chat. Thank you. Yep, thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me know. We want to make sure that everybody can see this. And I want to let you know, I do have a guide at the end where I have expanded some of the ribbon at the top too, so that you can see it a little bit better. Okay. Now we're going to take a look at hanging indentation that has not been set with hanging, but somebody has typed it in. So I think everybody knows what we're going to do next. We're going to click on the backwards P, which is our marks, and look at all those marks there. But most importantly, I want you to take a look at this first resource. It kind of looks okay, right? It's sort of kind of, except really this information should still be up here too, so that it would word wrap. Otherwise, it's kind of cutting it off. So what we'll want to do is we'll go up in front of this backward facing P, and we're going to hit the delete. So now, oh yay, it's all coming together, but we don't have hanging indentation. So what you need to do in this case for something that's already been created and it has a lot of returns in it is first take out all the returns so it just word wraps. So we're going to take out the return, and then if there's not a space, then we'll put that space in. We see there's an extra space. We can also space back if we need to. And we'll take out this next space. Okay, so I see something else with this too. Do you see how this is spaced and sometimes there's a little bit more spacing and so forth? That happens when full justification is being used. And I'm taking this as examples that I've had previously. When you are writing your dissertation, when you're doing your activities, unless it specifically says to do it, you always want to use left justification. Left, all your little justifications are in this same little paragraph box again, but right here it's doing what's called full justification, kind of like newspapers have. And what we want to do instead of having this right justification, we'll highlight what we want to have changed. You'll go back up to home and you'll go over to paragraph, and this is a line left, and you click it. And you see how it's kind of changed a little bit, and we get the ragged right edge. So now we fixed it. It's back to kind of like normal because we have word wrap, but now we want to change it and do hanging indentation. Since it has already been typed in here, we need to highlight this again. Then you will go to the Home tab. You will go over to Paragraph. You will go ahead and click on the paragraph settings. And notice this says none. So we're going to go down to hanging. And at the same time, watch how that changes when I click OK. So ta-da, hanging indentation. And I do have some guides at the end that have this in a little bit bigger format so that you can see it a little bit better up on the ribbon. But I will continue to explain this as we go along. Now, here's another one that's a little bit different. And these codes here are showing that there's different coding that's taking place on each one of these lines. So here, this looks kind of good. What's wrong with this? Hey, I like it. Well, I'll show you what's going to happen though. Let's say all of a sudden I find out that I need to add another source. Oh, it's McChesney K, and I'll take credit. I'll say Collins L. And look what happened. Now everything fell down to the next line that was extra on this first line. And that's why the hanging indentation doesn't work well if you use returns at the end. You really need to take all of those enters out, all those paragraph marks, get it to where it's all okay, just as word wrap, and then apply it. And once again, if you set up hanging indentation at the very beginning, before you start to type these, it will work for you automatically. And here's another question. What if I set up hanging indentation and I have all of these created in word wrap or whatever, all of those paragraph signs are gone, but I have it in another document. Can I copy and paste it in? You absolutely can, and it should keep that format because you have the format already saved. So let's go ahead and fix this one really quickly. We won't do all of these, but they're just here for examples. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to place my pointer right before the paragraph sign, press delete key, and then I got something else there because not only was this created with returns, it was created returning and putting in a tab or an indent. So you can continue to get rid of those other codes. Now, it's going to give you just those two words because we took out the indent, so you'll have to put a space in. And then we're going to come up here. We'll put our pointer right before this paragraph, and we'll do the same thing. And as spaces are needed, we will do that. Now we'll go back again and highlight this. We'll go over to the Home tab, then to Paragraph. We'll go over, and this one says it's hanging indent now, so it should be okay. If it didn't say that, so I'm going to go back right now and do a reset on it. We're going to do hanging indents to see that everything is lined up exactly how they're supposed to be. And then I'm going to take off the hanging indents, and now it goes back to word wrap. So you can change that very easily if you ever need to do that. Again, you need to have it highlighted. If you're doing it after the fact, then you need to go to paragraph. It says done. Then we go to hanging indent, and voila, there it is. So now I'm going to turn off the codes because they can get confusing. And you can see the difference between how these look with the hanging indentation and without the hanging indentation, except there are times when it is there and it may have been because of a return or because of a space or because you have used the indent or the tab key. And that's when you need to go back up and make sure that you take a look at what those codes are. All right, we're gonna go on to our next one, but before we do that, we're gonna take another break. And if Emily could bring up our next poll, that would be great.
Absolutely. Hold on one second here. Our next poll. Everybody ready to participate? I'm going to launch this.
In what year did Microsoft launch its first version of Word? And there is a correct answer here.
And just in case it doesn't pop up on the recording, the answers are 1995, 1983, 2007, and 2000.
And keep in mind, this could be any type of operating system. And if you don't know what an operating system, it would be things such as Windows or the Apple operating system, iOS, Linux, Unix, DOS, all those things.
Okay, wonderful. Looks like we have about 80% of people have responded. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. This is an interesting response. I'm going to share the results. Are you able to see it on the screen?
Very interesting. So 2% say 2000, 2% say 2007, 36% say 1983, and 60% say 1995. I love those responses because that shows that you guys are really smart about Word and operating systems. So the real answer is 1983, and it was for DOS. And it was also for another operating system that is no longer being used. However, in 1995, you probably all know with NT and some other operating systems, we started to do what was called WYSIWYG. And instead of having to use a lot of commands and controls, WYSIWYG, if you don't know what that means, it's what you see is what you get. And so that's about when Word started doing that. So thank you. Good job, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. So these are all those really cool trivia things, you know. Now you can like tell your teacher, you can tell your kids, you can have like a little trivia thing at the holidays or something. I'm sure everybody will be really excited about that. Okay. The next thing that we're looking at is using the indent tab key instead of spacing. And I have a little picture of the tab key here for you. So it's at the left-hand side of your keyboard. It sometimes looks different. It depends on what type of keyboard that you have purchased, but I think you kind of get the idea. So once again, as you know, I'm just loving using the paragraph marks. We're going to go ahead and click on the paragraph mark here. And now we're going to see some stuff. So we saw this previously when we saw all of these little dots here. These dots here indicate spaces, just like these dots in between each one of the words. These are spaces. Somebody has just gone space bar, space bar, space bar, and they're able to achieve that. Next, we're seeing the tab or the indent key, and it's showing us that that has been coded in there. No matter what you do with this, and I'm going to highlight this all for a minute, no matter what I do with this paragraph, I could increase the font size, I could make it smaller, I'm still going to get that same indent. Same thing does not necessarily happen with the space bar, depending on what you do with your spacing. So if I do bigger spacing, notice how things move. If I always want that to be a specific number of spaces or a specific blank space there, you need to use the tab or the indent key. Now, do you see anything else here? There's an extra space somewhere in here. And so you'll see that because we're using the paragraph marks. You can put your pointer in front of either one that you want to get rid of and press the backspace key. What you were seeing there too were some grammar marks, and that's one of the things we're going to look at too. So you will see that when you're doing your grammar checking. And this is just a little thing down here showing you where I got the little picture of the tab key. And there is a page break. We're going to be talking about that too, as well as section breaks. This page break here that you're seeing is called a hard page break. And we're going to be getting into that pretty soon. Welcome to hard page breaks. I have put together a couple of sentences here. And you can see I still have the codes on. So I put in, I'm writing these sentences, but these are the only sentences I want on this page. A lot of times, if that's the only thing that you want on a page, it can be very easy to just hit the return key. And that's what I've done here. And every time you see this, this is a return key. It goes return, 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 all the way down. It gets me all the way down. And then I'm at a new page. Now, that can work. But it can also be problematic, because if I went back up here and let's say I wanted to add additional information here, what's going to happen? And I'm going to show you. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And you can copy using Control-C if you'd like to use that, or Command-C so that you don't have to go all the way up and do that up here. I'm going to put my cursor pointer right in front of here. I'm going to do Control-V to paste it in. And let's see what happened. See, I still have everything where I want it, right? I think it looks good. There's no problem. But let's take a look. Let's go. Oh, look at that. All of my codes now went to another page. And then it kind of went in with this next page and so forth. So that can be a little bit problematic. I'm going to go ahead and undo this. We're going to go back up to where we had it before and go, cool, it looks good. But still, if we add anything or take anything away, it can mess up our pages. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight, we're going to go up there and we're going to get rid of all these page marks. Just right here, I'm going to press backspace, and then that didn't work either. You know what? What is really cool about Word is you can almost mess it up as much as you would like, and you can always use the undo. And that's just like, because you can go, oh my gosh, all my tabs are messed up, everything looks terrible, and you go undo, oh yay, it's back to where it was. Okay, so what we're going to do now is use what is called a hard page break. Instead of going return, return, return all this time and putting in all of these returns, I can go take my pointer, put my pointer right before where I want to have that new page. I can hold down the Control key on a PC or the Command key on a Mac, hold it down and press the return one time, and ta-da, it's on its own separate page. Also, it shows that you have a page break, and this is called a hard page break. And then you don't have to put all those returns, and it also tells you when and where you have that break. And if you ever want to get rid of it, pointer is where I have it, click, it's gone. So again, we'll put that Control Enter in so we have everything looking like it was. That's really helpful. And we're going to talk about section breaks a little bit later. And those become really important when you're using the different templates that we have for dissertations. Now, here's one that I get a lot of questions about. I also have a video on that I can share later on too. If anybody wants to have that, they can send me an email. So now we're taking a look at this. Again, we can just look at this without these marks and go, now wait a minute. I was typing all this stuff. I know I put a return there. The next thing is here. I know I put a return here. How come these are different? And they're different because of the different spacing that is set up by Microsoft Word. And Microsoft Word has what is called defaults. And I'm going to show you how you can change those defaults so this doesn't happen to you all the time. First of all, once again, we're going to go to the paragraph marks. And then I'm going to place my pointer right in front of the R in removing, and I'm going to go right down through this first mark. We're going to go ahead and take a look at this white space by going to Home tab, over to the paragraph box, and then clicking the paragraph settings. We're going to go in there, and if you remember, before we did indentation and we did hanging indents. This time we're going to go to spacing. Notice that it says 0 before, doesn't say anything after, and there's nothing for line spacing. There's many ways you can set this up so that it's the spacing that you want. I generally have my before and after set to 0, and you can do that with the up pointing arrow in the after area, or down pointing, you can have auto. And if it's auto, it's what is set as the default, or you can do 6, 12, all kinds of stuff. I usually have mine set at 0 because I feel that it's easy to work with, except if you set your default. So I have 0 and 0. You also want to pay attention to your line spacing. If you want it to be double throughout like you have in the dissertation, then it will do that. And then you can apply it, and then it checks it and makes a difference. If you have an extra return now, then you can take your extra return out. What we're going to do now is to go back in, and I'm going to show you different ways that you can set a default. Now, a lot of this won't take effect until you log out of Word and come back in again. So if you do something and it's not working, then you want to log out and log back in because you have set a default. So you want to go to the Home tab, go to the Paragraph tab, and then if you want it to be 0, you click on 0. You click on single if you want single, or double if you want double, or anything that you want. And then if you want to set it as default, you can click set as default. And then, as I said, sometimes, and you click set as default and you say, okay. Sometimes you have to actually quit Word and come back in for those defaults to take effect. So that's just some of the, and of course, if I don't want to save it and I don't, I will do cancel. And all of these are kind of the same. They're all kind of set up the same, but they have different levels of white space, and that's all going to be changed because you can go into that paragraph, you can go into your line spacing, you can do your before and after, and you make those changes. I have a video on this, and so if you're interested in that, you can send me an email, and I have my email address at the bottom of this. I'd be happy to send you that video. Okay, and oh, look, see, we have a page break here, yay. And now, next thing we're going to do is saving a Word document as a PDF file. I'm going to go ahead and take these off so you don't have to look at all of this stuff all of the time. And when would you want to save a Word document as a PDF file? A lot of times you want to save it, well, there can be a couple of reasons. One, it's easier to lock it in so that nobody can come in and make changes. Another time you might want to do it as if you are putting a signature in there, and sometimes you're signing documents and you want to save the Word document as a PDF file. You can, though, if you want to have your own signature and use it in Word, you can sign a piece of paper and you can scan that in, and then you can even just use Paint, adjust it and save it as a JPEG or whatever, and then insert it into a Word document. If you have questions about that, I'd be happy to walk you through that in a separate either session, or I will make a video. But this is really easy, guys. So watch how this works. You go up to File, and then you go down to, instead of Save, do a Save As. Then I'm going to put it in my Word demos here. And then before I save it, we want to look at Save As Type. And there's a lot of different types that you can save in. And Word really loves words, so they give you a lot of different ones that you can save it in. You can save it in a Word template version, but here's PDF. There's also XPS. There's also rich text format. You use rich text format if you want to make sure that almost anybody can read it. So maybe somebody that has, my good friend Phil, he only uses Linux. He loves Linux. And so when I send things to him, I do RTF. Also, Google Docs and things like that will read a rich text format better than just trying to open up a Word document. But for this, we're going to do PDF, and then we'll save it as a PDF file. I'm doing Save As, and then there it is. So now we have it there. And then you can make any changes that you need to make if you need to upload it again, and you can get it to convert. There are a lot of different things that you can do when you are saving it to PDF, but then you can send it to somebody and almost anybody can read a PDF file. Okay, we're going to blocking it because I already have it in here. Let's make sure I'm in the right one, and we're going to close this PDF out. Okay, so here we are again, taking a look at our screen. And again, you can save that file, and that's what we're doing. And we're going to go down to our next page. Oh, I forgot. I wanted to go turn these codes on again so you could see that here I have a page break. So I use page break sign and not a whole lot of these returns. And I could get rid of these returns as well because we don't need those on there. Stuff. There's a way to center everything on the page too. And if you're interested in that, maybe we'll have another session and we'll do some of these other things as well. Okay, this is kind of cool and neato. This is setting up word grammar check to go along with spell check. And I've got that first screen here that you can see where I've got the ribbon and I've enlarged it a little bit so that you can see it. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the file menu and click on it. And then we're going to go all the way down to where it says options. And there's all kinds of options that you can do. There's general, display, proofing, all kinds of different options that you have to set up. And that's all under the file menu and going to options. Here for this piece, we're going to go down to proofing. So you want to click on proofing. And when you're there, there's autocorrect options, correcting spelling, custom dictionaries, and then it says when correcting spelling and grammar in Word, do all these things. So I have all of mine checked because I want it to check spelling when I type. I want it to mark grammar errors as I type, and that's when you saw the blue squiggly stuff. Now, Word's not always correct with that, but they'll at least alert you so you can look at it and check it out. Frequently confused words, check grammar with spelling. So if this is not already checked under your options, when you went to file to options to proofing, you want to make sure that you check it. Now, the other one that I always check, because I'm always going back and forth and doing things with IRB and things too, is make sure that you check your readability statistics. And you can do it for grammar and style or grammar only. I do it for grammar only because I feel that works best for me, but you can try these out. So when you get done with this and you love it, then you click OK, and then it just takes us back. This one, generally, you do not have to restart Word, but if you see that it's not working correctly, then you'll want to go back and do that. I'm going to take these off right now. And then let's just kind of real quickly, let's see if we can go over here and do a grammar and spelling check. Now, I have this up here on my ribbon. You can add these, and if you have questions about that, you can add all kinds of little quick ones up here instead of going into like insert or design and page layout and stuff too. So there's a lot of cool things you can do. Let's go ahead and go through here, and you can see it's checking my spelling. I'm going to say ignore because that's a proper word. And then it's going to go down through those references and do much the same thing. So we're going to go ahead and ignore as we go through here. And then here we go with the grammar check. It's highlighting comment. Why is it doing climate? It's crazy. Well, what we'll do is we'll do the P, and it's doing that because we've got some extra spaces here and so forth. So it's alerting that to us so that we know. So for now, I'm going to ignore all of that. It's doing the same thing for support. Excuse me, for supports. And it always, of course, does it for your proper names. Now, if you're doing this too, if you ever want to add like a name, let's say it's always coming up and, you know, maybe it's coming up with North Central University and it thinks it needs to be 2 words. Well, you could go and add it as 1 word and then it won't come up again. So let's go ahead and ignore this, ignore. We'll just ignore all the things that have come up here. until we get to the end, because when we get to the end, we're going to see this message: spelling and grammar check complete. You're good to go. And then you can say, okay, and there's your readability statistics. So it's going to tell you about your passive sentences, your reading ease, and the reading grade level. And you're going to be asked to do this when you get to your dissertation. And my reading grade level here is 9. Yay, because I'm under 10. And what you will do is you'll do a print screen of that, and you'll be asked to save some of this stuff for your IRB, or sometimes it's just really great to know. So anyway, that's the information on doing that. So now we're going to go back down, and we've done the PDF. We're back to the grammar check, so you already know how to do that. And if you really don't like it and you say it's annoying or whatever, you can always go back to File, to Options, to Proofing, and uncheck it. Okay. Next, we're going to talk briefly about setting tabs, just that so that you know how to do it. So you want to go to page layout, because a lot of times you don't need to set tabs, especially if you're in your dissertation template. They've done it for you, but you might be putting in a table and you haven't been able to get that. So again, we go to page layout this time, and we're going to go to that paragraph block here. It's a little bit different than the one that we used before. We'll click on it, and here it's going to tell you the different things that you can do in page layout. You have line breaks, you have indents and spacing, and at the very bottom, hiding, then you're like, where's the tabs? You know, you can click on it, and here's tabs. You can do left align. We talked about that before. It goes to the left margin, and then it has ragged and a ragged edge. Then there is center, then everything's centered. Right, all the way to the right, and then you're going to have a ragged left edge, and then decimal is going to do it on the decimal point, and you can use a bar as well. So decimals look a little bit different, and what they're going to do is, if you set it for the decimal point, when you type, it'll do 1.0, 0.2, all those different things, but it will align to the decimal point. What I suggest that you do, if you want to start working with decimal points and you want to work on doing tables, is to open a new Word document and practice in there until you get it exactly how you want it. And yes, you can copy it out of there and paste it into another document. So I hope that is a little bit of a demo for you. It will take a while to go through there and do all of this, so I don't have an exact demo of that. But if you would like to contact me, or I can also make a little video of that, we can certainly do that. Okay, so what are section breaks? Does anybody know what a section break is? I do, and they're kind of cool. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about section breaks, and I think I may have one set here. If I don't, I have one earlier on that we'll go take a look at. And of course, I have to go back to home and turn on my markers. There's a page break, whoops, and a section break. So we have both of those here. This one has just a page break. And then at the section break, the difference between a page break and a section break is, at a section break, you can do different types of formatting. A page break is only going to take you to the next page. A section break is saying, I'm done here. I'm not going to do any more of that formatting stuff that I have. I want to change my formatting. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to go back up to the very top where we got started. Here, I have that tips and tricks with the word art and everything. Notice that that page is centered. I have that centered on the page. So I'm going to go down here, and that's where I put in the section break. And then what happens at that point in time is it takes me to my next page, and my next page is no longer centered because I have a section break there, and I can change anything I want. This is something that you are going to see when you start working with the template for your dissertation, because the template is going to have your table of contents and your abstract and all those things that you have before you actually start to write. You're going to have your title page and everything. That's going to have a section break. After your title page, everything is going to be numbered with lowercase, and it's going to be italicized, it's going to be Roman numerals. Then there'll be a section break before you start writing your dissertation, and it will set it up so that you have your page numbers at the right-hand side, and it's going to be regular page numbers. And that's how you use these different types of section breaks. So at this point in time, I would like Emily to do our last poll so that we can have one more exciting opportunity here.
Absolutely. Hold on one second. Let me launch it here for you.
Thank you.
Here is our third poll.
Okay, this is kind of interesting. So this question is, what is the widow orphan feature in Microsoft Word? Single choice. This feature helps with spell check. This feature is used to keep at least 2 lines of text either at the bottom or the top of a page. This feature provides enhanced printing features, or this feature does not exist in Microsoft Word. So go for it.
Are you able to see the results?
Oh man, you guys are so right. Okay, so we have nobody said it helps with spell check. Good not answer. Okay, and then 9% said helps with enhanced printer features. I could see that. That could possibly be it. Then the next one is it doesn't exist in Microsoft Word. But the biggest amount is 56%. Yes, it does. It's called widows and orphans. And they have been using this in word processing and actually in writing and publications forever and ever and ever. And what widows and orphans means is don't leave a widow all by herself. And don't leave an orphan all lonely. And it means that you need to have at least 2 lines either at the end or the beginning of each one of the pages. And you can set this up in Word so that it automatically helps you to do this. So that's like a real trivia that you can use at those holiday parties. So anyway, thank you for participating in our polling. So I'm almost ready for us to start questions and answers, but I want you to see my little step-by-step guide right here. I've got a couple of things that I made larger so you can see it better. And this first one is displaying the paragraph marks and codes so that you can see, and I've got my little arrows showing it so you can see exactly how to do it. I did not do one for every one of these, but if you do want it, let me know. And then hanging indentation, knew I had to do this one. So put all of this information together and pointing to where you need to click, where you need to select, and then that same thing for setting up that word grammar check. So I have that for you right there, and how to do the proofing. So that is all right there. And this is being recorded, so you can go back and take a look at it. And if you're looking at a recording, you can also do a print screen if you ever want to capture anything. So that's all I have. And Emily, should we go to the questions?
Yes, absolutely. Let me see here. So we are getting a lot in the chat about how they would love to have access to that and how they appreciate you walking through this. So
Okay,
for now, I'm going to go into the Q&A.
I know, we never heard of that.
I know, right?
It's funny. I love it.
I also loved your explanation. I was like, oh, yeah, you don't want to leave those people alone. So
I know, how lonely.
okay, so the very first question in the Q&A is there a way to go through a large document more quickly rather than space by space?
Oh, yes, there is. Thank you for asking that. There are command codes that you can use. So if you do, let's say, for example, see, I went to the top. If you hold down the control key and you hit your home key one time while you're still holding down the control key, that's what happens. If you do control N, it's going to take you to the bottom. And that's command N, you know, use the command key and stuff instead of the control key on the Mac. So I hope that answered your question. You can, there's a lot of other command code keys you can use. Control your control key and go to the right. I just popped up that menu. You can do control to the right, control to the left, and take you to the front of a line, to the back of a line. Oh, there's lots of those commands, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds you can do. And it is like, if you want to select your entire document, control A. and then you can select it. Let's do Control A. Selected everything I have there. Then you could do Control C and you could copy everything. But be careful not to just put your backspace key there because it will erase everything because we have it all selected. But you know how to fix it. You do undo.
That's right. Let me see here. A couple more questions have actually popped up in the Q&A, so we'll see if we can get through them. I do not have an options button under File. I am using a Mac. Where
Okay.
can I find it on a Mac?
That is a great question. And I will find that out for you because I currently do not have a Mac. Well, I have a phone that's a Mac.
Yes.
I don't have my PC that's that. And
Okay. That's okay. We can always take that question and
Sure.
I can make a note and we can get back to Patricia on the answer for
We
that.
will definitely, okay, it says, there is a keyboard command to open the Word for Mac preferences dialog. The keyboard command is Command plus comma, and then it's going to open it up. If that doesn't work for you, please let us know and we will get that, and I'll even get some screenshots for you.
I'm just going to go ahead and type that in the answer as well too. Command plus comma. Thank you. How can I get readability statistics in a Mac?
Okay, and that's great. And I'm glad that you're asking these questions. Maybe, and I don't know, at some point in time, maybe we can have one of these sessions and I'll use a Mac. And I can give that kind of a demo to you because I've got access to all kinds of technology and we can do that. So right now I can't give you that answer, but let me figure it out. Especially try doing that command we just gave for the Mac to get to the options, and that may pop it up and you may be able to do it at that point.
Okay, I see a couple of other questions about how folks need Mac info as well. So I do want to go ahead and point people to, of course, the Academic Success Center,
Exactly.
the writing coaches there. But I can see that this might be a need for future webinar focusing on Mac specifically. So we will note that for the new year. How do you set up widows or orphans? How do you set those up?
Okay, those are also going to be in your options area when you go in there, and you should be able to click that. Okay. I can get you additional information on that as well. It's just the Mac stuff I don't have access to right now.
Okay. I have someone posted in the Q&A about the Macs. For the Mac, click Word, then Preferences for the options menu.
Yay, thank you. Perfect.
Thank you for popping that in the Q&A. I appreciate that, David. Let me see. Another question. Let me see here. Why does the retrieved by date automatically appear if you use MS Word for APA formatting? Is there a way to remove this?
You mean it's coming in your actual document?
I think they're talking about when they, yes. Yes.
Okay. So if it's coming in your actual document, again, you can go to the options menu and there's different things that you can say you want to display, what you don't want to display. There's also some different areas in here that you can use for advanced so that you can take those types of things. It's see where it says typing replaces text when selecting automatically the entire word, copy and paste, show and display. So what I can do for you is I will get this to you, and how do I get this to people? Send me an email and I will send it to you.
So yes, we can do that too. Do make sure to go to the last screen so they have your contact information.
Absolutely.
But I can also post it as supplemental material as well too.
Cool.
If we get some documents for that.
Okay, we're going to go back down to the bottom while we're finishing up here. First of all, there are no better resources, and I'm not talking just NCU, but any university that I have been at, besides the Academic Success Center and Center for Teaching and Learning. Use those resources. They are wonderful, and they have saved resources. They have times that you can meet with people, you can schedule, that you can search through and find all of this. Wonderful. I tell all my students, use the Academic Success Center. Go to the Center for Teaching and Learning. Also, if you have any questions for me, I'm lcollins@ncu.edu, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. And then if there's something that I'm going to create for you because there's been a question, I will also share it with Emily so she can put it in for the extra comments.
Okay, absolutely. And just a follow up for the retrieval dates. I think this may be the last question we can entertain before we have to wrap up. But Chandra mentions that the professor keeps mentioning removing the retrieval dates when citing. I had to go back through and take them out from my reference.
No. Oh, no, that's something different. That's something different. Wait. That's the retrieved from. That changed for APA 7. We used to say retrieved from HTTP, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Okay. For APA 7, that has changed. You do not have to say retrieved from. But I think somebody else was saying that they're actually showing the most current date or whatever for their Word document. And that is something that is in options. And I will get that information to you. Now, just real quickly, just so that you guys know, if you're teaching and you have students, this is, you know, how we do the plagiarism and stuff too. Well, this is another thing that you can do. If you go in to your file again, what we're just doing right here, it says info over here. It tells you everything. It tells you when things were created, when they were last modified, and who did it. And so I'm not using this really here, but I had students where I used to work who were taking things like Microsoft Word and stuff like that. And then sometimes it didn't have their name. So you can always check to see who that author was.
Yes, and I do think that Chandra's question is in relation to APA. When they bring it over using the RCM in Microsoft Word, sometimes it'll bring over the retrieve from date. So you do want to double check and make sure that your ref works is set to APA 7th edition, and then just double check those citations there.
Yeah, absolutely. And check them anyway, because sometimes they don't always come across correctly. It depends on the version of Word you might be using or how it's been copied in. So I always check them.
Absolutely. And I am so glad you mentioned a version of Word. Just as a reminder, all of the Office 365 resources are free to you as NCU students. So please make sure if you haven't accessed that, go to the University Service module, which is in your student portal, and go into that course. And if you have issues accessing anything, please contact the CTL. We are happy to assist you. And I'm going to do one tiny plug, since we did tips and tricks and tips for Microsoft Word this webinar. Tomorrow we're having best practices for PowerPoints webinar. So please feel free to access that as a student and help spruce up your PowerPoints as you start presenting more often. And thank you so much, Dr. Collins. This has been so wonderful and so timely for me as an NCU student. And I thank all of the participants for attending today and really participating in the polls. We really do appreciate that. And until the next time, we will see you later.